Since the moment the collector first appeared, a lot of fans noticed that he looked somewhat like Luz, and in the most recent episode, we saw a lot of weird similarities between the two. So today, I want to talk about why these two are connected. My name is Deepcut, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump into it. The most recent episode of the Owl House opened with Luz and the Owl Kids returning to the Boiling Isles along with Luz's mother. Upon arriving there, it is seemingly abandoned until Bonesboro magically shifts into a playtown, with familiar characters appearing as toys. These toys have no will of their own and are controlled entirely by the collector from what we can see, from their running around screaming to their cheers for the collector when he comes in and saves the day, from Terra Snapdragon pretending to be the Owl Beast. The story, as Luz notes, is similar to the story of how she stopped Ida way back in Season 1 by discovering the light glyph and using it to stop the Owl Beast. Luz feels deeply uncomfortable about this, wondering why King has told this kind of story to the collector. We of course know that King, however, is just trying to distract the collector for as long as possible. The collector is destructive, but his goal is to just have fun, be a kid, and play games. So King's first instinct is to try to get him to play a game of Pretend, the game he promised they'd play if the collector stopped the Day of Unity. Under stress, King simply called it the Owl House, and from there he'd use his memories to fill in the stories and scenarios. But of course these aren't direct parallels to Luz's story, and instead are just shadows of her story. For instance, while she did use the light glyph to stop Ida's Owl Beast, it wasn't to save Bonesboro or anything like that, but to help Ida specifically. And beyond that, Luz wasn't exactly a hero in that situation so much as someone needing to make things right, as it was Luz stealing Ida's potions that ended up making her beast mode take over to begin with. Later in the episode, King reads the collector a bedtime story, and this, paired with some of the paintings in the background of the castle, begin to show how the collector's backstory is a godlike version of Luz's story. Luz lived in the human realm, of course, but yearned for more, a place of fantasy and adventure. Part of the reason she wanted this, however, appeared to be because she wasn't ready to grow up, not in the way that her world defined it at least. Luz felt misunderstood by her mother, and it just made her want to run away even more, so when Luz had the opportunity to stay in the Boiling Isles all summer, she took it. In the collector's book, we learn that he is one of many collectors, whose job aren't to collect humans like action figures and play with them, but rather to use this power to preserve notable species. The collectors are immortal beings who watch the universe and have seen many things disappear in their time, inspiring them to begin collecting them for preservation. In an image from the book, we can see humanoid beings worshipping the collectors from afar. However, in a scratched out text above it, it's explained that collectors will destroy entire planets if any of these lower beings try to meddle in their affairs. It would seem the collectors essentially watch over all lower life forms, and if they become advanced enough to interact with the collectors in their own domain, the collectors destroy them for the sake of maintaining their preservation project. This is scratched out because our collector wanted to write a new text, wherein he says he should just be allowed to go and make friends, and that he dislikes the other collectors, indicating that despite being worshipped by humanoids early on, the collectors decided to have more of a hands-off approach to keep their existence a secret, and that our collector is not supposed to be interacting with them. In artwork around the castle, we can see that our collector was the smallest in the family of collectors who appeared to be too busy supervising existence to spend any time with him. This mirrors Luz's relationship with her own mother, feeling like she doesn't understand Luz and doesn't want her to have the fun things that she wants out of life, which in the case of both Luz and the collector is to play in a magical world instead of focusing on responsibilities. The collector has a fixation on Titan children and seems to want to be their friend, which is interesting because Titans as a whole are apparently evolved to fight back against the collectors. According to the book, they will clean the planet and scorch the air in order to stop a species from meddling in their work, and this seems to be exactly how the demon realm came to be what it is. I believe that the collectors tried to wipe out life on this planet at some point, ready for it to start over, and covered it with a boiling ocean. The Titans would end up just evolving to be the lands on which lesser beings would grow and exist. There appears to be multiple species of Titans, but if the other Titan from the cult of the collector is any indication, the same types of species all rise up out of the muck of the decomposing Titan, leading to the same witches such as we see here now on the Boiling Isles all over the world. In addition to this, they seem to have the power to hurt collectors specifically, or at the very least we know they are able to trap them like our childish collector was before King released him. Lilith indicates in this episode that it was the predecessors of this collector that wiped out all of the previous Titans, but in the paintings around the castle, a different story appears. We can see in the corner of one of the paintings that it is our childlike collector who convinces lower beings like witches and demons to start wearing the Titan's skull and hunting them. It would appear that the Collector's goal was to convince the witches to kill the Titans for him, since he is weak to some of their powers, with the Collector being free to play with the baby Titans that remain. Many of them, like King, probably not knowing their fathers or their histories at this point and being under the Collector's control. Now, this is horribly destructive, but additionally, the Collector is too childish to understand the consequences of his other actions as well, even the ones that seem more innocent. King has him playing pretend, where no one really has to get hurt, but the Collector prefers games with winners and losers, and likes punishments for losers like sending them to the moon. When King points out they'd suffocate without oxygen, the Collector angrily shrugs it off and says they just have to hold their breath. King has made it clear he wants to reason with the Collector so that everyone can be safe, and perhaps the Collector can still even have fun while being a source of good, but the Collector gets so aggressive before he can be reasoned with that it's nearly impossible to convince him of what he's doing wrong before he actually does it. The way he absolutely destroys everything parallels how Luz essentially turned this entire world upside down because of her involvement in it and her very naive approach to it. This episode focused largely on how Luz blames herself for just about everything that has happened. There are so many little and big things that she is directly responsible for, and it all comes back to her naive wish to run away from home and live in a cool fantasy land, though of course the Boiling Isles wasn't even the fantasy land she expected. In many ways, the Collector is just Luz with unlimited power. When the Collector plays pretend with King, it's very similar to how Luz came into this world not seeing it for the very real and dangerous place that it was, but just wanting to play pretend and get wrapped up in fantastic ideas early on in Season 1. Luz, however, is not an all-powerful god like the Collector, and though her behavior is very much the same as his, the difference is she doesn't actually have to deal with the consequences of her actions, such as people she genuinely cares about being hurt. The Collector's infinite power in many ways is just the consequence of Luz's naivety, how she came in treating the world like a playground and the people almost like her toys. The Collector refuses to even play in Bonesborough as it is and turns it into a giant magical playset, just like the whole Boiling Isles has become some weird, sparkly fantasy world. Perhaps more akin to what Luz wished it looked like when she first arrived, pretty and dazzling, as opposed to her horrified reaction when she first arrived in Season 1. Part of why Luz was able to grow, however, wasn't just her willingness to listen, but the fact that she had legitimately good role models with Ida and King. After so much time playing pretend about the Owl House, the Collector wishes to have that kind of person really in his life. Not just some toy or actor playing the part, but what he really seems to crave is authentic interaction, what he wasn't getting from his Collector family. He is particularly jealous of Luz for all of this, but what he has hopefully come to realize in the upcoming series finale is that the only way to get that is to be more like Luz, to be willing to listen to King and Ida instead of fighting against them, the way Luz had to learn on her own back in Season 1. Luz and the Collector even have a striking parallel in that Luz has decided she no longer belongs in the Boiling Isles or the Demon Realm and wants to return home so that she can't interfere with the lives of the people there anymore, and this is the fate she likely has in mind for the Collector. King, of course, wants to reason with the Collector in the finale, but for my theories on that, hit that subscribe button as I have a video coming out tomorrow about how I think Luz may try to betray King by trying to end the Collector for good. See you guys then.